Ahab, king of Israel, chased happiness in all the wrong places. He believed that by amassing wealth and power, he could fill the void within him. His days were spent in the pursuit of material gains, and his nights were restless, haunted by an insatiable desire for more. He sought joy in wealth and power, accumulating possessions and influence. His treasury overflowed with gold and silver, and his influence stretched far and wide. Advisors and generals surrounded him, each vying for his favor, each contributing to his growing sense of importance. His palace gleamed with gold, his armies commanded respect. The walls of his throne room were adorned with the finest tapestries, and his soldiers were the best trained in the land. To the outside world, Ahab appeared to have it all, yet a deep emptiness gnawed at his heart. Despite his vast wealth and power, Ahab felt a profound sense of dissatisfaction. He often found himself staring into the distance, searching for something he couldn't quite name, something that all his riches and power couldn't provide. My desires knew no bounds. I was always reaching for more, always wanting what I didn't have. It was never enough. The more I acquired, the more I wanted. My heart was a bottomless pit of desire. I coveted Naboth's vineyard, a small plot of land adjacent to my palace. It was a beautiful, lush vineyard, and I wanted it for myself. I offered Naboth a generous price, but he refused to sell. His refusal only fueled my desire. When Naboth refused to sell, I sulked. I couldn't understand why he wouldn't part with his vineyard. I was the king after all. I was used to getting what I wanted. His refusal was a blow to my pride, and I couldn't let it go.
His wife, the infamous Jezebel, orchestrated a wicked plan. She saw my distress and took matters into her own hands. Jezebel was cunning and ruthless, and she was determined to get me what I wanted, no matter the cost. Through false accusations and violence, Naboth was eliminated, and Ahab claimed the vineyard. Jezebel had Naboth falsely accused of blasphemy and treason. He was swiftly executed, and the vineyard was mine. But the victory was hollow. This act of greed brought no lasting joy. The vineyard, once a symbol of my desire, now felt like a burden. The joy I had anticipated never came. Instead, I was left with a deep sense of guilt and regret. Instead, it invited divine judgment. The skies darkened, and a sense of foreboding settled over the land. I knew that my actions had consequences, and that I would have to face them. The prophet Elijah confronted Ahab, foretelling his downfall and the destruction of his dynasty. Elijah's words were like a dagger to my heart. He spoke of divine retribution, of the end of my reign and the ruin of my house. His prophecy filled me with dread. Ahab's pursuit of happiness through worldly means ultimately led to ruin. My palace, once a symbol of my power, now lay in ruins. My dreams of glory had turned to ashes. I was left with nothing but regret. He serves as a stark reminder that true joy cannot be found in material possessions or the pursuit of power. My story is a cautionary tale. True happiness comes from within, from living a life of integrity and compassion. The pursuit of wealth and power is a path to emptiness and despair.
Prophet Nathan stands in stark contrast to Ahab. He found his purpose and happiness in serving God and speaking truth, even to the most powerful individuals. Nathan's life exemplified courage and integrity. One of the most striking examples of my bravery is my confrontation with King David. David, despite being a man after God's own heart, had committed adultery and murder. I could have remained silent, fearing the king's wrath. Instead, I boldly confronted David with his sin.
Nathan's courage did not stem from a desire for personal gain or recognition. It flowed from his deep love for God and his commitment to righteousness. He understood that true happiness comes from aligning oneself with God's will, even when it is difficult.
King Jehoshaphat, unlike Ahab, sought happiness in righteousness and the well-being of his people. My reign was marked by religious reforms and a deep concern for justice. I understood that true leadership involves serving others and upholding God's laws. I faced numerous challenges during my reign, including threats from neighboring kingdoms. Yet, I consistently turned to God for guidance and strength. When faced with a vast enemy army, I prayed, "We are powerless against this great multitude that is coming against us. We do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you."
His faith was rewarded with a miraculous victory. Jehoshaphat's story reminds us that true happiness is found not in personal gain but in seeking God's will and working for the good of others. Section 4. A voice for the voiceless prophet Micah's unwavering stand. Prophet Micah lived during a turbulent period in Israel's history. The nation was in a state of moral and social upheaval, with the people facing numerous challenges that tested their faith and integrity. The societal fabric was fraying, and the once strong community bonds were weakening under the weight of widespread corruption and injustice. Corruption and injustice were rampant. The leaders and officials who were supposed to uphold the law and protect the people were often the very ones perpetuating these injustices. Bribery and deceit had become commonplace, eroding the trust of the common people in their institutions. The rich exploited the poor, creating a vast chasm between the haves and the have-nots. The wealthy lived in opulence, indulging in luxuries, while the poor struggled to survive. This disparity was not just economic but also social, as the rich used their influence to further oppress the marginalized, and the powerful abused their positions. Those in authority wielded their power not for the common good, but for personal gain. They manipulated laws and policies to benefit themselves, often at the expense of the vulnerable and the voiceless.
In the face of this moral decay, I remained a steadfast voice for truth and justice. Despite the overwhelming opposition and the risk of personal harm, I could not stay silent. My commitment to righteousness and my love for my people compelled me to speak out against the injustices I witnessed.
Micah's message was often unpopular. Many did not want to hear the harsh truths he spoke. They preferred to continue in their ways, ignoring the cries of the oppressed and the demands for justice. Micah faced ridicule and hostility, but he did not waver. He condemned the hypocrisy of the wealthy. They performed religious rituals and made grand displays of piety, but their hearts were far from God. Their actions betrayed their true nature as they continued to exploit and oppress the less fortunate and powerful, calling them to account for their actions. Micah did not shy away from confronting those in power. He boldly challenged their authority, demanding that they repent and change their ways. His courage in the face of such formidable opposition was a testament to his unwavering faith.
I reminded the Israelites that true worship involved not just empty rituals. It was not enough to go through the motions of religious observance. True worship required a heart committed to justice, mercy, and humility. It demanded that we live out our faith through our actions, showing compassion and kindness to those in need, but also acts of compassion and justice. True devotion to God was demonstrated through our treatment of others. It was seen in the way we cared for the poor, the oppressed, and the marginalized. Acts of kindness and justice were the true markers of a faithful life.
Micah's unwavering commitment to justice stemmed from his deep love for God. His faith was the foundation of his life and his actions. It was his love for God that fueled his passion for justice and his desire to see a society that reflected God's values and his fellow human beings. Micah's love for his people was evident in his tireless efforts to advocate for their well-being. He understood that true love for God was inseparable from love for others. His compassion and empathy drove him to fight for a just and equitable society. He understood that true happiness could only be found in a just and compassionate society. Micah envisioned a world where people lived in harmony, where justice prevailed, and where compassion was the norm. He believed that such a society was not only possible, but essential for true happiness and fulfillment.
My life serves as a powerful reminder that we are called to be voices for the voiceless. We must stand up against injustice even when it is difficult or unpopular. We are called to be advocates for those who cannot speak for themselves, to fight for their rights and dignity, and to fight for justice in our own time. The legacy of Prophet Micah challenges us to examine our own lives and our society. Are we living out the values of justice, compassion, and humility? Are we willing to stand up for what is right, even when it is hard? Micah's unwavering stand serves as an enduring inspiration for us all.
Section 5. Rebuilding Broken Walls, Nehemiah's Joy in Restoration. This chapter delves into the inspiring journey of Nehemiah, a man whose heart was set on restoring the glory of Jerusalem. Nehemiah, a Jewish exile in Persia, found his calling in rebuilding the broken walls of Jerusalem. His journey was not just a physical one, but a deeply spiritual mission that resonated with his faith and dedication to his people. He wasn't a prophet or a king, but a cupbearer. This humble position in the Persian court did not deter him from dreaming big and taking bold steps to fulfill his vision. Yet when he heard of the plight of his people, the news struck him deeply. The desolation of their holy city was more than just a distant tragedy. It was a personal call to action, and the desolation of their holy city, his heart broke. He turned to prayer, seeking divine guidance and strength to undertake the monumental task ahead.
My joy came from serving my community. Every stone laid, every effort made was a step towards healing and unity, and restoring what had been lost. The sight of the restored walls brought immense satisfaction, not just to me, but to everyone who had toiled alongside me.
He inspired his people to work together, overcoming opposition. The journey was fraught with challenges, from external threats to internal doubts, but Nehemiah's leadership kept the spirit of the people high, and rebuilding the walls in a remarkable 52 days. This rapid progress was a testament to their collective determination and the divine favor they believed was guiding them. This act of restoration wasn't just about bricks and mortar, it was a profound statement of resilience and faith. It was about rebuilding their identity, faith and hope. The walls symbolized more than protection. They represented a renewed sense of purpose and community.
My story teaches us that true happiness can be found in working for the common good. It is in these selfless acts that we find our true strength and joy, and contributing to something larger than ourselves. The unity and cooperation we experienced were the real foundations of our restored city.
It highlights the joy of restoration, not just physically. The physical rebuilding was a visible sign of the deeper, more significant restoration happening within the hearts and minds of the people, but also spiritually and emotionally. The journey of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem was as much about healing the spirit of the community as it was about constructing the physical barriers. It was a testament to the power of faith, unity, and the relentless pursuit of a shared vision.